Everybody, welcome. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use instance on points in a way that you don't have to actually array anything, and you can get these type of results. It's going to be pretty easy. Stick around. We're going to put a texture on this thing by the end, and I'll show you a neat little trick here with the origin points and stuff like that, and how to align this with geometry nodes so that you can have these type of instances on your mesh. It's gonna be a fun tutorial. It won't be too long, so let's get started. All right, for this example, I'm just going to jump into edit, hit GZ1, and I'm just moving the origin point for this so I can kind of scale it down to whatever size I want. So something like this is good. I'm gonna be using the carver tool real quick. If you don't have that enabled, it's just a basic hard surface modeling add-on built into Blender, initiated with Control-Shift-X. I'm going to cut a circle in here by hitting spacebar twice. I'll leave it at 40, and I'm just going to cut in a difference boolean like that and shade this auto smooth. Now I want to jump into vertex select, and I'll just control right mouse. At least that's how it is for me. If you're not using the context menu or whatever, maybe that doesn't work. And that will allow me to just select this one loop here with the pick shortest path. So it's pretty useful. You can play around with that operator. Control B. It's going to throw a bevel in here. And I don't really care too much about the other geometry that's in there. So it really shouldn't affect what I'm doing. So I'm just going to grab this face, Shift D, and then P, separate it by selection, jump back out into object mode. Then I'm going to switch over to geo nodes. I'm going to throw a geometry nodes group on this. And then I want to throw an instance on points node. And I'm going to drop that in. Now that's going to disappear, but all you have to do is just press M to mute that if you want to get it back. And there's another add-on I'm going to be using, just native Blender stuff here. So if you just type in bolt, you'll get the bolt factory. Once you've done that, you can go in and find a bolt, drop it in. It's cool. You can do bolts. You can drop the nuts in. You can change the bit, Allen torque, all kind of cool things. So you can change how this looks up top. It could be a 12 point, it could be anything you want. Ultimately, I think I want something kind of curved because this is going to be going into a bevel and I want it to look nice. And then I'm going to shade this auto smooth as well. And I'm going to need to scale this down. So scale down to something like that. And I want to bring this somewhere in a point of reference. Doesn't matter too much where. Scale it down a little more and apply the scale. Now I'm going to pin the workspace so this doesn't go anywhere, and I want to grab this object and drag it in. I'm going to tag that in to the instance on points, and then you see we'll have something starting up here. Doesn't look too good yet, but you can scale this down and apply the scale and change it there, or you can throw in a scale elements node, which is my favorite way of doing it, really, and you get a little bit more control. Now the alignment is going to be pretty important, so we want to get the alignment right, otherwise it's not going to look good. So I'm going to bring in an align Euler to vector node, and I want to tag this into the rotation. I'll put it on the Z axis, and then I want to pull out the vector and type in normal and get a normal node. So now that's going to start to look like something, but unfortunately right now something's not right. And the thing that isn't right is this object. So let's go to the options, turn on origins. We'll see the origin is at the bottom. So if you were to grab that origin, hit G and Z, you'll see that you can now kind of bury that into the mesh just a little bit. So keep that in mind as we go forward. Now for the next step, I want to actually assign these vertices to something. So I'm going to come up here and mute that and grab this and jump into vertex select. And wherever I want these to show up, Something like if I was to come through here and just kind of do a manual select on these, and I don't want the end one, so I'm going to make sure the ends are not selected, and this may not be perfectly even. I can symmetrize this later, and what I'll do is I'm going to do a checker deselect so they're not too close together. I think that's going to look pretty good. Now I'm going to go to vertex area. I'm going to add in a new group. I'm going to call this instances. And now that I've got that set up, I'm going to assign those vertices to that. Now what I want to do is I can unmute this, drag this selection, because we know that selections are going to be endpoints, all different kind of things, materials. And then I can come over here to the geometry nodes area, and instead of this being a Boolean selection on off, you just click this little toggle right here, and this is going to be an attribute. Now we can go down, grab our instances, and we are now instancing those bolts properly right here. And there's a bunch of different things you could do. You can grab the main mesh object, grab this one loop, and once again, probably just jump into vertex select, control right mouse, and I think it's going to give me a little bit of a problem. All right, I'm just going to start from one side and then just kind of work my way over with the shortest path picker and bring that over. And that's good. Now I can control B, bevel that, add a few segments if I wish. And now that's going to look pretty good. Once again, you can change the origin point here if you wish and kind of bury those in just a touch. And now we've got a rotation factor here we can mess around with. Kind of get these aligned up to look a little bit better. And if I just kind of move it right about there, that looks really nice. Now you can add more vertices to this, but just realize the particular geometry, the bevel, and different other things that are going on here, like the curvature, it may not work. So pick your models that you put on there and the angles and the amount and where wisely. Now some things like this, you could do the same thing. Separate that by selection, come out, and what we can do should be able to just copy this group. That's not quite a group, but just going to copy this, unpin it, make a new one, Control V, and it's not going to let me copy that because Blender 4.0 doesn't do it for some reason. So I can just make another one real quick and bring that same bolt in and do a similar thing with the selection, output, make a new one. This would be instance, and you can just underscore put top. That way you can keep track of what's actually going on. And mute that whenever you need to, and you'll see that you've got some certain areas here where you may or may not want there to be any of that geometry. So what you can do, you can come in and you can start doing a couple of different things. You can go make a cut with the knife tool. So like if I want this here, lock it into the X axis and lock that in as such, and I can take this and I want to mirror this across, so I'll go from the Y and mirror that, and when I jump back over, that didn't have the apply mirror on, no big deal, just go ahead and jump back into object and apply that. Now I've got these lines on both sides, so I can take the vertices here, hit W, and subdivide that maybe a couple times, whatever, to like get some geometry in there where I would want it, and have a couple more bolts here. I can auto merge these, or rather double tap G and just kind of slide that to where I want it. And it's pretty easy to do. And I'll just go ahead and mirror that again. Looks good. No mirror modifier. I'm hanging around. So I'll take these points and I want to assign them to the new group. I just have to make a new group because that was actually a vertex group on the other model. No big deal. So this would be instances, top just to keep track of it, which is nice. As soon as I apply that and then open this back up, go over here, grab the, do the same thing, grab instances top, and boom. So now we've got our bolts in the corners over here as well. And guess what? We'll just have to do the same thing with this, and we can bring this up and kind of mess around with the alignment just a little bit. In fact, if I want, I can actually just translate that and bring them up. Throw in a transform geo right here. Just kind of bring that up a little bit. Don't have to do a whole lot with those. There we go. Now this wouldn't be complete unless we set a material here. So I'm going to throw in a set material node. And now that I've got that in there, I'm going to jump over to Eevee. I'm going to go to materials in Blender Kit. I just did a full tutorial on that. Go and check my videos if you want that. And I'll just type in metal and get a whole bunch of different things. I really like this one right here. So I'm going to just drop this on the mesh. Doesn't matter necessarily. And that is not geometry nodes based, so it's just going to pop right up. And for the bolts, we can use something just a little bit shinier perhaps. All right, and so now that that one's there, we can bring up the other one just by selecting it on that node. And those bolts look pretty good. So I'll do the same thing over here. I'll throw a set material node in, and I grab the same exact color there. And that starts looking kind of nice. And I don't have to have cavity on for material. I didn't really use cavity during this tutorial, no big deal. So there you go. And you can render that out. That's actually going to look somewhat stunning, I think, especially if you throw an HDRI in there and kind of look at it. And it looks pretty good. Looks pretty darn good. And one last thing, don't forget that you're going to need a realize instances. So if you try to apply this now, it's going to say it does not contain a mesh. Throw this in, try to apply it, boom, now you've got a mesh. Also, don't forget, if you do want to convert these to a mesh, there's more than one option to do that. You can object, convert to mesh right here, and it will do the same thing. There we go, pretty easy. Anyways, hope that gives you guys some good ideas. Go ahead and smash that like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.